Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed that. But it's Kogris here, back at it again with another banger freaking build. I absolutely love this build, and it's one of the most funnest builds I've played this league. I wouldn't say it's the best because it has, you know, it's not super tanky, but oh my god, is it fun. So, in all, I present to you the Oni Cry Zoomer. Now, the reason why I call it Oni Cry Zoomer, I'll explain it now, as a little bit of, you know, nuances there. But all in all, this is an Oni Goroshi, the one-handed sword, the one that drops from Act 1 in the Twilight Strand. Berserker, Cyclone character. Now, the Zoomer part of it was something more of a meme, something I want to do for fun, and it was totally not necessary. But holy hell was it fun, and I highly recommend it. So, we picked Berserker, obviously, because of the damage and the rage that it gives you. On top of that, since we're using Warcries, his Warcry notable Warbringer gives us a crap ton of cooldown recovery, and I'm just spam on Warcries very often. Really good for damage because all the Warcry nodes are absolutely busted. On top of that, we use Mob Mentality to get rage, even though we don't really need it because Berserker does give you rage. But what's good about Mob Mentality is that it gives you rage every time you Warcry. So technically, your rage will never drop off. You know, there's a lot of bosses in the game, Shaper, Guardians, that have a lot of phasing and little cuts in between. And during that time, your rage can just absolutely disappear. So it kind of sucks that the majority of builds nowadays can just absolutely blow up a boss. By the time you blow him up, the rage hasn't even stacked up yet. So what a better way to use Mob Mentality so that your rage is always at full no matter what. On top of that, we use Oni Goroshi. Now, I love this weapon. This weapon is absolutely unique. It drops from level 1 in Twilight Strand. What you have to do is literally run Twilight Strands over and over and over. I've done it twice in my life after the nerf, because it used to be really easy, after the nerf, and I suggest do not do it. Why did I do it? Because I'm an idiot. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. Trust me. Unless you're playing solo self-found, not freaking worth it. So what makes this weapon so cool is that it drops from Act 1. It's a 6-link one-handed sword. You cannot combine it with another sword. It basically says you can only use one of these, and it takes both slots. So technically, it's a two-handed sword, but it's a one-handed sword. So all the nodes in the tree are one-handed. On top of that, it's not really great as a weapon because it gets 2 to 3 fizz as you level. By the time you hit level 90, it's a 300 DPS sword, or a little bit more, it's like 330 DPS, which is not bad. It's a pretty good sword, but in terms of raw DPS, it's not that great because its attack speed is pretty shit. It's 1.45. 1.45 is not going to cut it for the majority of builds anyway. And this build, not a problem. You'll see why. So on top of that, it has a crap ton of crit. With 80 to 90% crit, depending on the role, you have an 8.5 to 9.5 base crit. Amazing. I highly suggest try to get an 85% crit or higher. But with that, you should easily get a bunch of crit without investing too much on crit on the tree. Despite that, though, we still invest a lot because of the Warcry nodes. I'll explain them further. But that's the whole thing. It's absolutely amazing. So, what makes the Oni Goroshi so good? It has a blessing. What this blessing does, this is the whole portion of the build I'm explaining to you guys right now, is that it gives you 123% of your physical damage as extra fire. It gives you a second onslaught, is what I'm going to call it. It's basically onslaught, but it stacks with onslaught. It's her blessing, though. It's 20% attack and movement speed and cast speed. No one cares about the cast speed to the Cyclone character. And then it gives you immunity to freeze, chill, and stun. Stun is not that big of a deal because Cyclone is already immune to stun, but freeze and chill is quite nice. So, all in all, people are really confused on how to build an Oni Goroshi character. I've had many beginners come up to me. It's like, why does build do no DPS? I'm using Oni Goroshi. It doesn't make any sense. And the reason behind that is because Oni Goroshi scales just like you would a Void Forge or Face Breakers. What makes Oni Goroshi so good is that it's basically a 300 DPS sword with technically a super crazy offhand stat stick. If you guys know, I don't even know, it's like a year ago. These broken stat stick scepters. Back then, you used to be able to use a one-handed sword and a scepter. And if the weapon couldn't use the scepter, you would only attack with the one-handed sword, making the scepter just a source of stats and damage. And you just put a lot of physical as extra fire, physical as extra cold, elemental as extra chaos, things like that. And that's basically what the sword does. It just gives you 123% of physical damage as extra fire. And because it's only one element, you can just get a lot of penetration for that one element and do a crap ton of damage. So that's what it is. We just stack an F ton of flat physical and just convert that to fire. And boom, there you go. 20 million DPS. You blow up the entire game. Don't believe me? Watch this clip.
I am.
Oh my god. Easy. Well, I hope you guys like that because that thing was stupid. So, there's the Oni Goroshi part of it, right? There's a downside to using Oni Goroshi. Oni Goroshi, her blessing, gives a degen the higher levels you go. I think it gives you, let me read this real quick. 0.5% of your total maximum life and energy shield is fire damage per second per level. By the time you level 90, I'm not going to do the math. It's a lot of degen. On top of that, we take the Rage Cluster Rite of Ruin for Berserker. What Berserker does is it triples the effects of Rage. Rage is absolutely amazing because you get 1% attack damage per Rage, which is 50%, basically 50% attack damage, 25% attack speed, and 10% movement speed. It triples that, so now you get, what is it, 150% attack damage, 75% attack speed, offsetting the low attack speed in the weapon, and 30% movement speed. But there's a degen portion of it. You lose 0.1% of your life per second per rage while you're not losing rage. Basically, if you're gaining rage, which we are because of mob mentality, we always have a rage up, we're degenning. So how do we offset this? Bring in the Warcries, and that's where the cry portion of the name comes in. We use Cry Wolf. Cry Wolf gives you Warcries counts as having 10 additional nearby enemies, no matter what. So even if there's no enemy nearby, when you Warcry, it acts like if there were. And what Enduring Cry does is it gives you a crap ton of regen. So when you Warcry with 4 Cry Wolves in your base with nothing nearby, you get 1,300 regen. Is absolutely amazing and completely offsets the degen from the Goroshi and the degen from Rage. And that's kind of where I had the idea of how to make this build. That's the cry portion. On top of that, we use Warning Call. Warning Call gives us 50% melee crit chance and 35% melee crit multi if you Warcried recently. Since we're using Berserker, which gives you Warbringer, that gives you 100% increased Warcry cooldown recovery speed, you're going to be Warcrying every 1.3 to every 1.5 seconds. And that's absolutely amazing because that means that you have Warcried recently always. Now, you don't really need the cooldown recovery because I think the cooldown on a Warcry is like 3 seconds. So even if you don't have Berserker, it's still fine. But this just makes it that much better. Now, there's another node called Provocator, which gives you, I believe, 40% crit chance and like only 15 crit multi. Yes, that's viable. Yes, it's really good. But since we're using Oni Goroshi and we care about the degen, Cry Wolf for the extra regen is better. And we can still get damage from this because then we use Rallying Cry. So we actually have 2 Warcries in this build. Enduring Cry has a very small cooldown and very small duration, but it gives you a crap ton of regen and offsets everything. It's really good against the majority of the game. On top of that, Rallying Cry is kind of like the opposite. It gives you an F ton of damage. Rallying Cry on its own gives you about 2 to 3 million damage, and it lasts 30 seconds. So what that means is you can technically Rallying Cry, keep it up for 30 seconds, and then you spam Enduring Cry on your basically your movement click, and your Enduring Cry will be spamming while your Rallying Cry is just in the background giving you the mana regen and the damage. And every time that it falls off, you can recast it. It's instant due to the node called Battle Rouse, I think is what it's called, or Battle Cry. It's a node in the tree. You have to pick it up. I'll show you later. And it gives you Warcries are instant. So no matter what, if you put a Warcry on your movement, it's very important, on your movement key where you would click your left click to move your character around, it would Warcry at the same time, and there's no really delay or nothing. You don't feel it. It's instant. So as you're moving, you're just having a Warcry. You just shout. It's like you're like a random old man just shouting crossing the road. That's basically what you're doing every freaking second, literally. So we use Rallying Cry for just the damage and Enduring Cry to offset all that degen. Now, Rallying Cry can be an issue because you do have to worry about it, but it's only damage, guys, and you don't even need the mana regen. So if you want to ignore it and just map without it, go for it. But keep in mind that it does give you like millions of damage. So if you don't use it, you're losing that millions of damage. But even then, we still have 20 million DPS. Without concentrated effect, it's still above 10 million. So your clear speed should be perfectly fine without the Rallying Cry. But it's there if you ever need the damage, you know? You just pop it on. It's not that big of a deal. You know, use it if you do, use it if you don't. But of course, before a boss fight, it lasts 30 seconds, just pop it, and you're, you know, a good 3 million plus DPS bonus. Okay, so now here's the fun part of the build, the zoomer portion. So now the build does get a lot of attack speed. We get 75% from Rite of Ruin, since Rage gives you 1% attack speed per 2 Rage. With 50 Rage, we get 25% attack speed, times 3 is 75. 75% attack speed base. Then we have 20% from Onslaught, it's 95. Another 20% from the Oni Goroshi Sword, or Blessing, that's 115% attack speed. All the attack speed on the tree. It's a lot of attack speed, guys, to the point where I couldn't control it and I had to actually drop the faster attacks from Leap Slam. But that's not fun. I don't want to just Leap Slam from pack to pack and then Cyclone here and there. I wanted to just Cyclone through the entire thing and act like I don't even need another movement skill. Because technically Cyclone is a movement skill. Technically, no one uses that for that portion, realistically, but it is so much fun to just Cyclone at such a fast speed. So how do we attain so much movement speed? Well, Rage is one of the reasons why I picked Berserker, gives you 10% movement speed. With Rite of Ruin, triple that. Now you have 30% movement speed. Then you got 30% movement speed from your boots. That's 60%. Right? 20% from Onslaught. That's 80%. Another 20% from the Blessing. That's 100%. We have Elusive, which is another 30% movement speed. It's 130%. From our Quicksilver Flask, we get another 62. Let's just say it's 60. It can go up to 70 though. So it's another 60%. That's already about 180. I may have miscalculated at this point because I'm saying a lot of things, but it's 180. Right? And then we have Tailwinds, which gives us a 10% more. And then Berserker. When you pop Berserker, it gives you so much damage. It makes you so much bigger. So your AoE is effectively bigger. But on top of that, it gives you 30% movement speed. More. It's a multiplier, just like Tailwinds. You get 40% more movement speed. And if I missed any movement speed, because I'm probably sure I have somewhere along the lines of more movement speed in the tree, at the end of the day, you have 300% movement speed. 318% to be exact, according to POB. So, I know Cyclone has a movement speed debuff, but it means when you're Cyclone, you're going to be moving with around over 150% movement speed. And that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun, guys. I enjoyed that a lot. So, if that's up to your team, hey man, this build's a build for you. So there's our Zoomer, you know, fast as fuck boy, Sonic portion, right? And then here's another thing. So how does the build attain so much DPS? We have 20 million. We get our Flat Fizz primarily from our jewels, the Abyssal Jewels. They're not really the primarily. There's a lot of Flat Fizz, of course, from the sword and from our gear and our amulet. But we try to stack as much Flat Fizz as possible. On your rings, you're stacking Flat Fizz. On your amulet, you're stacking Flat Fizz. And then we use a lot of these Searching Eye Jewels or Murderous Eye Jewels, whichever one you use, with Flat Fizz, accuracy to cover our accuracy and get, accuracy caps, and life. And if we have enough accuracy, you can go for more attack speed, but it wasn't really necessary. So we use about 5 of these Abyssal Jewels, 4 to 5, depending if you have a Watcher's Eye or not. Where basically you want Flat Fizz, life, and then accuracy. And that covers, a lot of the Flat Fizz, and it allows us to get a bunch of extra fire due to the sword. Now here's the other portion. How do we convert it to fire? Because we are a fire build. We use Avatar of Fire from Zoth's Blood. Now Zoth's Blood is really cool because it gives you maximum life and penetration. And if you use a elemental catalyst, the penetration does go higher, which is quite nice. And it's give you cover enemies in ash, which makes them take more fire damage. But the keynote is, of course, Avatar of Fire, which converts 50% of every element, including physical, to fire. So that's where we get 50% of conversion. How do we get to the rest of the conversion? It comes from our gloves. You can get 25% if you craft it, or you can go for the temple mod. I forget what it's called. It's like Topo something, Tante, or something like that. And it gives you a little bit of fire damage to attacks, and then physical damage to fire. The only problem is, that's only 75%. And this is where the build kind of gets scary. Because Avatar of Fire says you cannot deal non-fire damage. If you don't have everything converted, you're literally losing. It's gone. That damage is gone. And somehow we still able to get 20 million DPS single target with only 75% of our damage. That is shocking. So how do you get 100% conversion? This is where it gets kind of expensive. Let's say you get the temple mod on your gloves that gives you fire damage, hybrid with the 25% conversion of fire. You cannot craft physical damage to fire on top of those gloves. They're mutually exclusive. It doesn't let you. It acts like it's already existing. So how do you get 40 to 50% conversion of fire? You have to slam them with an Exalted Orb from the Conqueror. What Conqueror specifically? Crusader. So you need an open prefix on those gloves and slam it and hope to God that you get physical conversion to fire. Because he actually gives you maximum cold res, conversion of fire, conversion to cold, conversion to lightning, and then some freaking total recovery crap. That's 5 mods. You can't control it. You have to slam and hope to God that you get conversion, and then hope to God it gets fire. That's very expensive when each Exalted Orb is 2 or 3 exalts. Of course, you can do the crazy multi-modding or maybe meta-crafting with the prefixes and stuff. But, we're all casual players here. Not everybody has 100 exalts to just blow on a pair of gloves. And if you decided from the market, there are about 30 exalts. And I said, hell no, I'm not paying 30 exalts for these damn gloves. So I decided to just buy the gloves that I wanted with life, whatever res, and the fire damage mod from the temple. And decided, F it, I'm going to test my luck out and slam it with a Crusader's Exalted Orb. It had an open prefix. And I slammed converted to lightning. And that's not bad, guys, because that's, let's say you get 20% conversion of lightning from your Exalted Orb. Because of Avatar of the Fire, which converts 50% of that to fire, you actually have 10% conversion from that one lightning mod. So if you get fire, and congrats, you made a lot of money, and you got a crap ton of DPS, because if you get 100% conversion, it's about 3 million, 4 million plus damage on top of everything. But don't feel so bad if you even hit conversion, because half of that is technically going to fire due to Avatar of the Fire. Now, if you don't get conversion, then, sorry, you kind of lost the bet and the roll. But either way, you don't need it, guys. I ran to level 90 without Without 100% conversion, I only did 75. And then when I did Exalted, I got Lightning, which is only about, 72.5% of my damage. Who cares? That's not a big deal. And it still completely obliterated the content. But hey, if you're a big boy and you want to go max damage, get that full conversion. You're going to love it. So yeah, that's where their big boy DPS comes from. And that's how you technically scale an Oni Goroshi character. And thus, guys, that's where the name Oni Cry Zoomer came from. Hope you liked the name choice. I freaking loved it. So that's pretty much the gist of the summary before we get into a detailed guide of the items and especially into the montage where you're going to see me obliterate every single boss in the game. I do stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at around 11:30 EST. If you guys want to come hang out, ask me any questions, you can join our Discord down below. It's a good place to ask any questions when I'm not online or, I'm not available on YouTube. But otherwise than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Let's get into the montage. Yo, what's up guys? Hope you guys enjoyed the montage. Now let's get into the bit of the build and all the little details and how it functions. And of course the cluster jewels, which are basically a very important on how the build, works and sustains itself. So first things first, Ascendancy. The Ascendancy we go with is Berserker. Primarily I went Berserker just for the rage, because rages give movement speed, which is part of the zoomer portion, but it gives you a lot of attack speed, which is one of the downsides of using an Oni Goroshi. It only has a 1.45 attack speed base. But other than that, another big portion of the build was that in order to counteract the degen from rage and the sword, because the sword is a massive degen, it's kind of like Righteous Fire, but not as crazy. I wanted a lot of regen, which makes me use Warcries, and Berserker has a Warcry node called Warbringer. This would actually recommend to pick up first, as it gives you basically you don't need a life flask because it recovers 25% of your life and mana. So if you notice here, you're wondering why I don't have a life flask. That's why. It gives me so much regen, right, that there's literally no point. It gives me 1,200 regen to be exact. You guys saw it earlier. There's no reason for me to use a life flask when I can just, recover it and then the regen will top me off anyway. Now, give or take, it is riskier because you do have that 1 second period where it's on cooldown. It's only a 1.3 second cooldown. You guys can see here. It's really quick, 1.33 cooldown. But, in that 1 second, you can't spam your flask. So, give or take. But the whole point of this build was not to be tanky. It's just to go fast as hell and just do a lot of damage. So it was fine with me. So that's why we don't use a life flask, if you're wondering. Right? So I recommend getting Warbringer first. And the reason I'm saying that is because once you start as a Berserker and you come get all these little nodes, you come down, you can go straight for the cluster jewel and pick up a medium one. You cannot put a large one in until like level 60 if you get a 2 jewel socket one, but you can put a medium one in. And the one I recommend is we only have one of these, is a Cry Wolf Mob Mentality Jewel. This one gives you you and nearby enemies gain 5 rage when you war cry, and Cry Wolf is just giving you a buff. So with only one Cry Wolf, your Enduring Cry will give you 300 regen, which is perfectly good for clearing and everything. But the Rage is what's really cool, because the Rage is basically 10% movement speed and 25% attack speed, and of course 50% attack damage while leveling. That's awesome, and it makes you level up a lot quicker. So I highly recommend picking up Warbringer first. After that, then go for Rite of Ruin. The last thing you want to pick up really is Aspect of the Carnage, because just straight up damage. It doesn't really make or break the build. It just gives them more damage. So just pick it up last. So I highly recommend Warbringer. Get Crave of Slaughter for Rage. We don't really need the Rage on hit, but it does sustain Berserk, and Berserk is massive in the build. And then Rite of Ruin, of course, for the crazy, stupid damage that it gives you. So that's pretty much the order. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as a Berserker, you want to come down here. I told you again, pick up this medium. You can sock it in the medium one here, and then eventually, when you have level 60, you can put the large one in and start doing the fancy stuff with the cluster jewels. I highly recommend picking up Battle Cry first. Like once you get that, actually, before you even get this node, make sure you do have Battle Cry, which is right next to it. So let's say you're picking up Berserker. You're going through down here, come down, pick up Battle Cry first. You can even anoint it if you want early on without having to pick up the points, but then go down and pick up Mob Mentality if you have the cluster jewel. Battle Cry makes it so your Warcries are instant. This is very important because that means it doesn't actually, I would say, stun lock you. It doesn't animation lock you when you use a Warcry, meaning you can just walk around while Warcrying, which also works with Cyclone. Like give or take, I am holding both my left and right click, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm already used to it, and I enjoy it a lot. It's not, I'm used to it already. It may be something you might not like, but as you get used to it, it's perfectly fine. It gives me more of an active play style. I get kind of bored when I don't play, use a lot of skills at once, so it's fun for me anyway. But yeah, it basically allows you to walk while Warcrying. So this is basically where your rage is, and as you level up, you see 38 rage, 43 rage. You're just going to be getting a lot of rage, which gives you a crap ton of attack speed while leveling. Very nice. So from there, get all the life nodes like over here. Just pick it up because it's the only thing on the right anyway. Then you can start going for all the melee stuff, getting all the crit chance, the sword crit chance here if you're using a sword early on and get the life. But the tree makes itself, If you want the life later, you can get this life node later. What I did is I usually get the life later because I don't care and I'm playing, soft core. I go here, pick up Battle Rouse, go down for the jewel, pick up this life node, go get all this damage. Lava Lash you can leave till later, but it's a high damage boost. I picked it up last, up to you. Then go left, get up Blade Master for the accuracy. Accuracy is very important. The life. If you have a jewel, the Watcher's Eye, you can put it on, but you probably don't have the aura until later on, so don't mess with it. The life, and then go up for the next cluster jewel. I highly recommend getting the 2 cluster jewels in the crit first, and then going for, the constitution on the life. And that's pretty much the simple build. Cluster jewels do have a downside, of course, and is that since you're using a cluster node, you're not actually on the tree, so you're not picking up stats. So unfortunately, we do have to get a lot of it in the build. So you're going to see where I sacrifice some damage. I had to pick up stats. Okay, despite that, the fact that cluster jewels give so much damage, it kind of offsets the fact that you kind of sacrifice damage on the gear to get stats. No biggie there. So let's go over the cluster jewels that you want to pick up. The most important one, the large one, isn't like the large node itself isn't really that important, but the one I highly recommend that you should pick up is Martial Prowess. It gives you attack damage, is nice attack speed, but the main one is a global accuracy rating, as you do want to hit cap, and we do hit that using 2 Martial Prowess, and as you can see later, the Abyssal jewels that I use. So Martial Prowess is highly recommended. First one, ideally, that you should pick up. Next thing, Feed the Fury. Now, Feed the Fury gives our only source of life leech, and it does a lot of damage as well, since we're always life leeching due to our degens, and it gives us a crap ton of attack speed. Really, really good and really strong. After that, then get Devastator. Devastator, you don't really need it. It gives you a chance to explode, dealing 10 for the life. It's only 15% chance when you kill an enemy with attack hits, which Cyclone doesn't attack, obviously. And it kind of functions with Herald of Ash very well. We do not have a lot of AoE, so our Herald of Ash is not super, wide, but the AoE of our Cyclone is wide because we have melee AoE, things like this node over here, if I can even see because of my mouse, Brinkmanship. That gives me melee AoE. It's not actual AoE. Like generic, it doesn't affect our Herald, it doesn't affect, whatever other AoE things you have in the build that are not melee. Like the explosion. But it did help a bit, but it's totally not necessary. So if it's too expensive, don't worry about it. But essentially, those are the ones you want. Now, for the medium jewels, actually, before that, let's go to the other cluster jewel, the large one. Another Devastator and another Martial Prowess. Same thing. That's what you want. Now, for the medium, like I said before, you want one with Mob Mentality and Cry Wolf. Cry Wolf is very important. Each of our medium jewels has 1 Cry Wolf. The reason for this is because with 4 Cry Wolves, our Enduring Cry gives us 1,300 regen, like I showed before. Very important, sustaining all our degens in the build. Between, Rite of Ruin and Goroshi, which give a crap ton of degens. So, with that in mind, the next one, for this one, this jewel specifically, you need 1 Mob Mentality. We already have Rage from Berserker. Why are we picking up Mob Mentality? Because Rage does not sustain itself. Rage, if you're fighting a face boss, like I said earlier, like Shaper or one of the Guardians, let's say the Blue Guardian, or maybe a Chimera, your Rage will fall off. That's not good, especially for a Conqueror. You have to wait for his stupid little animation, you know, mad whole shoujo transformation where he turns from little Conqueror to, you know, the big boy that they are, or girl. But either way, this sustains the Rage so that it will never drop off. So since you're always constantly war crying as you're walking around, the 1.3 second cooldown, your Rage is always at 50, and that's super, super nice. So I highly recommend one of these, and it's really good for leveling as well. And then the rest are just going to be Cry Wolf and Warning Call. Warning Call by far is your highest DPS option by far for melee, gives you a 50% crit chance and 35 crit multi. We stack basically 3 of these, 1 Cry Wolf, 1 Warning Call. As you guys see here, 1 Cry Wolf, 1 Warning Call, 1 Cry Wolf, 1 Warning Call. Now, there is Provocator. Provocator does give around like 40% crit chance and 50 crit multi if you Warcry recently, which obviously, or Warcry recently. But we have to use Cry Wolf for the build. So how do we make it for last damage? Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry gives the build around 3 to 4 million damage in the POB. For a simple reason, it gives you 178% damage per 100 enemies nearby. Since we have 40 enemies nearby, 40% of that, you can do the math. If you were to do 10% of that, it'd be 7, let's say round it up to 18%. That'd be 10%. Times 4, 40, 68, something like 70% increased damage. It's just around to 65, around there, roughly. That's really good. 65% increased damage. So, it is multiplied by all the buff effects. So you're like 65% damage, it's not that much. But it's, remember, we have a lot of Warcry buff effects. So 65% damage and then multiplied by that. I'm not going to go into that math. That's a little too complex for me. But you get the gist of it. It gives a lot of damage. Now, the downside of that is you are rotating between 2 Warcries. The Warcry you want to spam is Enduring Cry, because Enduring Cry, like I said before, has a very short cooldown. It has 3-second cooldown. Rallying Cry does not. It has a 32-second cooldown. So you literally can just ignore Rallying Cry like if it was a buff, like Arcane Surge or something like that. So you just remind yourself to pop it on. Now, if you find it too annoying, you can completely ignore it while clearing. And just before a boss fight, pop your Rallying Cry and then go to town. But it's still a lot of damage while clearing, so I still, you know, I like the active playstyle. I like doing it. So what I do is, I'm, you know, cycloning. I let go of my left click, so I'm still cycloning while moving with my attack, you know, with my Cyclone actual button. And then there, I press Rallying Cry, and then I go back to pressing both buttons again. And I, you know, I'm spamming the main one. Might be annoying. If it is, just not drop, but don't use Rallying Cry while clearing. And that pretty much covers the damage we would have gotten anyway from Provocator. There's no real downsides. Forget best of both worlds. It's just a little bit more work on your hands. But that pretty much covers the jewels. Now, the most important thing for the cluster jewels, moving on to the actual small jewels, is these. What you want, like I said before, only Goroshi works like a face breaker. You want to stack Flat Fizz. So all your jewels that you really want to pick up is just a Searching Eye or Murderize jewels with either physical damage to attacks or physical damage to sword attacks. I believe I have one here. The sword attacks are more expensive, so if I didn't get it, I didn't get it, and not a big deal. I didn't get a sword attack one. Same thing. Just try to get tier 1 or tier 2 fizz damage to attacks with life, and then the first thing you want to prioritize is accuracy. Here I have 1, 2, 3. I believe I have another one, 4 with accuracy, and that helped me cap my accuracy rating. Actually, make that just 4. 4 with accuracy, Abyssal Jewels, and that helped cap my accuracy completely. After that, then you want fizz, life, and then attack speed if you still a critical strike recently. I have 2 of these, 1 here, and then 1 in this tree over here. As you notice, I'm not using a Watcher's Eye. I could have used like a crit multi Watcher's Eye, but that's too expensive. I could have used actually I am using a Watcher's Eye. Excuse me, I'm using an attack speed one. Really cheap. You don't really need this. You could have used another Abyssal Jewel if you want, but the attack speed one's cheap. The crit multi is better, and the attack damage is like the same shit. But attack speed I just want to offset the sword's you know, attack. If you need more accuracy, just get another Abyssal Jewel. Not that big of a deal. Now, Abyssal Jewels are usually expensive because no one's rolling them. They're not rare. They're just no one's doing it. I think it has to do because of the heralds of 3.10. If you're watching this later on, in 3.10, herald buffs were, you know, broken as hell. So everybody was rolling Cobalt Jewels. Don't give a shit about Abyssal Jewels. But yeah, that's where we get a lot of our Flat Fizz. You know, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jewels with Flat Fizz, not including the Flat Fizz from our rings, and everything else. We'll go into that now. So that pretty much covers the passive skill tree. Requirements though, the medium jewels are required if you want to offset the regen. The leech does help too, but I like having full regen while walking around. I don't like being degened while walking. And while walking, we have to worry about nothing. So, you know, it's one of those moments where you have to be leeching to survive. It's not like that. Okay, with that, let's go into the gear. Now, of course, we're using Oni Goroshi. The only way for you to get Oni Goroshi is to kill Brutus in Act 1 in the Twilight Strand, literally the first level you spawn in. The only way for you to get him is to run Twilight Strand over and over and over for 12 hours straight until you kill him. The only problem with this is you have to make more characters. The reason being is when you kill him the first time and you exit Twilight Strand, you cannot come back. So you have to relog, basically exit a character selection and come back in. Another problem, when you come back in, the zone has not reset yet, so that zone still has the Brutus that you killed. So then this is where you have to go to a second character and run it with that character and kill Brutus and that character, and then rinse and repeat another character. I highly recommend 3 characters and make them Scion. I only recommend this if you want to farm it. It takes around 10 to 12 hours. Do not recommend it. It's not really worth money. If you're playing solo Suffon, you can go right ahead and you can build it in solo Suffon, but otherwise do not do that. I don't recommend it. I've done it twice. Not cool. But otherwise, it's a very cool sword because it drops as a 6-link and it's super good. Now, it scales with you. Another thing is you use it level 1, so you can use it while you're leveling if you already bought it anyway. And it gives 2 to 3 fizz, 2 attacks per level. By the time you level 90 to 100, it's about 330 DPS. Only downside, it has low attack speed, but because of Rage, giving a 75% increased attack speed due to Rite of Ruin, Berserker being broken as well, it offsets that completely. Great. What makes the sword so good is that it gives you crafts and a crit chance, 70 to 90. So the base crit is super high, giving us a lot of crit chance. But her embrace is massive. So every time that we ignite an enemy, is basically when we crit with fire damage, or fire, obviously, we cannot be stunned. That doesn't really matter because we're Cyclone. You get 123% of sword physical damage gain as extra fire. Don't know why that specific number. But it's basically like a sat stick. It's like Face Breakers or, you know, Void Forge. You want to stack a lot of flat fizz so you can get a bunch of extra fire. That's just how it works. Very good. You're unaffected by Burning Ground, Freeze, Chill, and Ignite. And then you get a second round of Onslaught. It gives you attack, cast speed, and movement speed 20%. And it does stack with Onslaught. That's why I call it a second round. Very good for zooming. As you notice, the Freeze and Chill immunity. So I do not have a Freeze and Chill immunity Flask. I didn't need it. Very cool. So basically, this basically means that it's a 330 DPS sword with a bunch of crit and a massive stat stick for your second hand. If you're talking about a year ago when stat sticks used to be a thing. Great. And here we use our totem. It's a 5-link and our 6-link is Berserk. Let me explain. Ancestor War Chief, you can summon 2 of them. They do like 4 to 5 million DPS, each of them. So it gives you a massive amount of damage, and they also debuff the enemy with Combustion. Very good. You want Ancestor War Chief, elemental damage of attacks, melee fizz, Combustion, because when the totem ignites the enemy, they're going to reduce their res by 19% fire. I had to put this in my Cyclone because the Cyclone does enough damage, and there's better single target mods than Combustion. It's better to put it on your totem as a source of utility for bossing, like, you know, Conquerors and Awakener. And then concentrated effects, pure damage. And then Berserk. Berserk is massive because it basically, you know, it starts degenning your rage, and we can actually almost sustain it between Mob Mentality, the Warcries, and Berserker, giving us it every hit 0.3 seconds. It gives us 20% more damage, more attack speed, more movement speed, and less damage taken. It is so good, and the reason why it's so cool and why Mob Mentality is so broken is because since we can sustain our rage at 50, you know, rage at the beginning of a Conquer fight and just ignore their you know, the little bullshit phasing, you can Berserk at the beginning of the fight with 50 rage stacks and you just go to town and completely melt them. It's so good, and it's basically like an oh shit button as well during mapping or when you just want to zoom even quicker. It does give you AoE because it makes your character bigger. Cool. Now, if you can't caught it on the tree, I didn't have mana regen. So how do we fix our mana? We get a Warlord's Ancestral, highly recommend an Ancestral Plate because it gives you res. You can use whatever you want, but the Astral Plate's best. And you want socket attacks at minus 15 to total mana cost. We socket in Cyclone here, and then it costs no mana cost. As you guys can see, I can use Cyclone to my heart's content without worrying about anything. Very cool. I'm not even using a level 21 Cyclone, guys, but it does get flat fizz, so I highly recommend getting a level 21. You want Cyclone, increase AoE, then you swap out with concentrated effect for damage. You want elements of damage to attacks. You want melee fizz, and if you get awakened melee fizz, you get intimidate, which gives you 15% more damage. Oh, it's increased damage taken, which is a more multiplier, giving you another 2 to 3 million DPS. I didn't do it. Infused channeling, and then close combat, which makes us do more damage in proximity. We're on top of them, so it works. Very cool. It is 4 off colors, but I believe in you. It's not that hard. Especially nowadays with Reach giving you 2 white sockets from the Betrayal. Yeah, so that's what makes it so freaking good. Now, for our helmet, the auras you want is Enlighten level 4, because we're stacking a lot of auras here. You want Precision for the accuracy and crit. Herald of Purity for the flat fizz. As I said again, you want to stack as much flat fizz as possible. And then Herald of Ash, because it's a fire build, so Herald of Ash is pretty good. And is help with the clear as you, blue explosions, and then the burning will kill everything around it. Very, very good. Again, no quality. Doesn't matter. Now, moving on to our rings real quickly. The reason I'm saying this is because since we use Herald of Purity, the best ring for you to take is a Herald of Purity with buff effect. Buff effect makes Herald of Purity do basically double, almost double what it's giving us. So it gives us so much flat fizz. It is absolutely insane. Now, most of you are like, why didn't you get double damage? Double damage costs around 7 exalts, the one with buff effect and increased physical damage. But it's not that good because if I take reduced mana reservation, I can put aspect of the spider, which is a more multiplier because it's increased damage taken and it lowers their movement speed. So it's both CC and a lot of damage. Very, very good. And it's way better than just 50% increased fizz damage. And that one's way more expensive. It's much cheaper to try to, to buy level 4 Enlighten and, put in aspect of the spider into a random gear than to actually buy a circle of guilt with double damage. That's what I recommend. The other ring, since we're using cluster jewels again, you need ints. So I highly recommend putting ints, flat fizz, obviously, whatever res you need. And then if you get wed, good for you. If not, don't worry about it. And then life. Right? Now, that's why the Herald of Purity is so good. Now for the helmet, what you really want is just life and int. Int rolls naturally on a helmet, so it's very cheap. Just get int, life, and whatever res you need. I added open prefix, so I crafted AoE for the bloops and for the Cyclone AoE. Very, very, good. Let's go over Amulet real quickly since we covered the rings. Amulet is super important. Exhausts blood, giving us Average of the Fire and saving us literally all these points to get Average of the Fire. And if you read Average of the Fire, it gives you everything converted to fire. Half of it anyway. It's like chaos, so physical, cold, lightning, obviously not fire because it's dirty fire. Half of that is converted to fire. The only downside is we deal no non-fire damage. So the whole goal of the build is convert all your physical to fire. Unfortunately, I was only able to get 75 for the majority of my gameplay. I'll explain to you how I did that. 50% comes from here, and usually basically 25% from the glove. But there's a trick around it. I'll explain it when I get there. Exhaust Blood's amazing, giving you penetration. It gives you covers enemies in ash, makes them take increased fire damage and more multiplier, more life, and then the annoyance you want to do for max damage is Fatal Blade for more crit chance to crit multi. However, if you do want more life, you can go for Discipline and Training. Very good. They're not too expensive usually nowadays, so that's what I recommend. Okay, moving on to our gloves, which are very, very tricky. Gloves, you want dexterity because we are, low on dex. You want life, and then you want res, and then try to look for this mod from the temple. It's called Topotante. It gives you fire damage to attacks. Good, but who cares? The main mod is physical damage converted to fire. This does not stack with crafted physical damage converted to fire, giving you 50%. It doesn't work. Unfortunately not. So how do you get 40% or higher physical damage converted to fire? Right, and this is what I was trying to do. The only way for you to do is basically buy Topotante ring, glove with life and whatever. Make sure it has an open prefix. Then proceed to buy if you come here real quick, you want to go to PWDB, go to gloves. As you see here, you have to buy a Crusader's Exalted Orb and exalt it and hope to God that it gets one of these physical damage. And if you hit the fire damage, you hit Jackpot. But the other ones are good. Let me explain. It can be bad. You can get the cold res and life reach and you just, rip it completely. Not rip it, but it's not good. If you get that mod does stack with Topotante, giving you 40 to 50% conversion. Those gloves run for about 30 exalts or higher. Super expensive. Do not recommend it. I crafted this for about 3 to 4 exalts. The glove itself was 1x because it's a really good exalt. Life, dexterity, cold res, and an open suffix for attack speed. But you can drop the attack speed and get something much cheaper. But basically, when I exalted it, I got physical damage converted to lightning damage, and that's perfectly fine with me. Of course, not the jackpot that I wanted, but because of Avatar of the Fire converting 50% of lightning to fire, half of that converts to fire, so that technically is that 10% of physical damage converted to fire as well. And little note, but hey, it's still a damage bonus anyway. So yes, I did run the game up to level 90 with only 75% of my damage. And I still deleted everything. You do not need 100% conversion, but if you do get 100% conversion, you go big boy. Again, you get like 3 or 4 million DPS. Awesome, right? So on the glove, you want cancel damage taken Immortal Call. Since we're using Enduring Cry, we get Enduring Charges all the time, giving you fully buffed out Immortal Call. Go for level 9, level 11. Then you want Leap Slam for your movement speed, as it covers everything. As you get more rage, your Leap Slam goes faster, so don't worry if it feels slow at start. It gets to the point where it's uncontrollable, and I did drop faster attacks because of it. And here you pop fortify, so you know you get a defense when you leaf slam. You're gonna be zooming the majority of the time though. Yeah. As for our belt is actually massive. All you really want is life, whatever res you need, and then craft wed from the bench. It gives you about 32%. That's really good. That's all you really need. I proceeded to exalt it with warlords. I used the conquerors and I got lucky and I got melee fizz, which is absolutely insane. It's a suffix, so it's like it fit anyway. And the armor was just a plus when I got the belt. So the belt turned out to be a really nasty belt. And like I mentioned earlier, you use one Abyssal Jewel with accuracy if you need it, flat fizz, life, and then if you don't need more accuracy, you get attack speed. Very, very good. And then for the boots are very tricky. If you're not going to zoom, don't buy or do what I'm about to tell you, these little boots with Elusive and Tailwind. But if you want to zoom, these boots are super important because Elusive gives you 30% movement speed and Tailwind gives you 10% more action speed, which affects totem placement speed, projectile speed, movement speed, attack speed, all that important stuff. So it's DPS and zoomingness, I guess you can say. I got lucky in my first try. I bought a 2-stone boots. I did the whole thing. I'll explain it now. And I got movement speed. And then I had an open suffix. So I crafted aspect as a spider and then crafted a res on it. If it's too expensive for you, just buy a normal pair of boots with movement speed, life, and res. And you're good to go until, you know, you can afford these. But basically what you want to do is Elusive is very easy to roll on a pair of boots. So buy Redeemer boots. I highly recommend PWDB up here. Go to boots. Right, whatever boots you want to buy. In my case, I use strength. And Redeemer, you see here, it's a prefix, right? There it is. Prefix, chance to get an elusive on critical strike. It's a 250, which basically is a decent chance of getting it. The lower the number, the lower the chance. While if you look here for the suffix Tailwind, that's 100. So basically, elusive has a 2.5 times greater likelihood of appearing. So what you want to do is get a pair of boots, like let's say a 2-stone pair of boots, ideally level 85, blank. Exalt it with a Redeemer's Orb, making it a Redeemer's base. And then you want to just basically alt spam it like I'm doing here with these gloves until Elusive appears. Once Elusive appears by itself, make sure that it's the only mod that says Redeemers, because the Awakener Orb is what combines the two mods together. Picks one of the mods on the one of the Conquer mods on the item. If the item has more than one Conquer mod, it's gonna pick one from random. So you want to make sure that you only have one Redeemer mod. It's going to say of the Redeemer. If you press Alt, it says prefix Specters. It's going to say prefix Redeemers. You get the point. Like you say here, it's going to say you see as Redeemers for Elusive, and then Tailwind says of the Hunt. That's Hunters. Right? Because Elusive is higher chance and it's a cheaper Exalted Orb, I highly recommend buying that base, let's say 2-stone or Sork Boots if you're ES, Exalted Redeemer's Orb, roll Elusive, and that's your base. You keep it there. Then, because Tailwind's more expensive, you can try your luck in doing what I'm doing now and try to get Elusive, which is very rare, or you can just flat out buy it. But if you do buy it, make sure that the Tailwind is the only Conquer mod. Don't buy one with 2 of the hunts. It's a ripoff. Don't buy the cheapest one. Most likely it has 2 of the hunts. And it can be a shit boot. Don't worry about the base. That's why the base is on the Redeemer side, not on the Hunter side. Then get your Awakener's Orb, right click on the on these little boots, the Hunter boot with Tailwind. It's going to grab the Tailwind, and then you slam it onto the other boots, usually the 2-stone boots or the better boots you want, and then it forges it on that pair of boots. That's where the first pair of boots have to be the best base that you want. And then it forms something random, like this pair of boots that I crafted earlier, I think last week. It was okay. But if you can, ideally you want an open prefix, you can craft movement speed. If you do get life and have another open prefix and get movement speed, you may bank. But either way, I was messaging that. Just ignore that. Not your Discord. But ideally you want movement speed. If you didn't get movement speed like here, like I got lucky, then just craft it like yourself. However, if you have an open suffix, you want to craft aspect as a spider like everything explained earlier. If I didn't have an open suffix here, I would have taken off attack speed and crafted it there. It doesn't matter, just craft it anywhere. It could be your belt, your rings, just craft axe spider anywhere. On your boots, I have blood and sand for the damage and the AoE. Sand gives us AoE, blood sand gives us damage. Rallying cry for the buff, enduring cry here as well, and then war banner for the accuracy. It does give more increased accuracy rating, which helps cap out our accuracy without having accuracy in our gear. Moving on to your flask, the first flask that I would recommend is a Quicksilver Flask. Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline, ideally with movement speed. This allows you to zoom even more, scaling with, Berserk and Tailwind and all that bullcrap. You want additional charges, ideally, for the, so you can use it 2 or 3 times. But you can go for, I think I think it's called Alchemist, which gives you increased effectiveness. Up to you. I don't really like that mod because I like lasting it longer. But yeah, if you don't really care about the zooming portion, you want to leap slam, and you want to be, you know, ethical, then you can just get a life flask if you want, or bottle faith if you want to be more damaged. You can't put a bottle faith in here and just be stupid. I did get one. I did use it. It was stupid. But yeah, those are pretty much your options just for zooming. Then Alliance War for just more melee damage. Cinder Swallow for the onslaught. It gives you crit chance, and then, you know, a little bit of sustainability, but you don't really need it. And then, of course, the igniting enemies take 10% increased damage. For fire, we're always going to ignite. Wise Oak for penetration. Make sure that your fire is your highest res. Should be pretty easy considering Zoth's blood gives you a lot of fire resistance. And then a Diamond Flask with immunity to bleed for your crit chance, pretty much only. And again, if you guys didn't catch that earlier, I don't use the life flask because Warbringer recovers my life and my mana, and then I also have a F10 of life regen from Enduring Cry. Anyway, I don't really care. For your Bandit, we're crit, so you want, and you need the res, go for Lyra. And for your Pantheon, you want, since we can't be stunned anyway, don't get Brine King, get Arakali for the life recovery rate if you stop taking damage over time recently. So basically, every time that you crit, and then let's say you jump away and your sword buff only lasts 3 seconds, goes away, we get 50% increased recovery rate because we stop taking damage over time, which is awesome for Enduring Cry. You get so much life regen, it's insane. And then the Chaos Res damage over time is really good, you know, because Chaos Res sucks. I mean, Chaos damage sucks. And then for here, Soul of Abraf is kind of interesting in this scenario. You can use Shoal Shikari for reduced Chaos damage taken, or Rislatha. Actually, don't use Rislatha, we don't need the life flask, don't worry about that. But Abraf says reduce fire damage taken while moving. And since the blessing from the goddess is fire damage, while we're cycloning, we're taking reduced fire damage, which helps with her degen quite a bit. So go for it. I say it's worth using. And then the movement speed on Burning Ground, if you want to zoom a bit more on certain maps, maybe. And very quickly, for those who want to know about my MTX, I was using Dragon Hunters, but I did buy the new MTX, the red one, and it looks absolutely stunning with, in my opinion, with the Onigoroshi theme and the fire, and especially the weapon effect is actually a red katana, which kind of fits the theme of what Onigoroshi should be, a fire sword. But basically it is the Malice weapon, the Malice helmet, the Malice set, basically ultimate chaos weapon effects. I was using dragon wings, but I want to change it up and use this damage dragon away me. The fire wings with the sword in the middle of the cape. I actually love this back set a lot. I don't really use it seen a lot. I don't know why. I think it's beautiful. It is the Seraph battle wings. Dragon Hunter pet. I do have a Nine-Tailed Fox with a different character. That's Pog 2. Dragon Hunter portal. Yada yada. Apocalypse for footprints effect. Excuse me. And the Redeemer. Just to make it subtle. I didn't want to make it too big because I do want to see the red sword. But yeah, that's a lava aura effect. And that's pretty much it. I use a bunch of skill effects, but you guys don't need to worry about that too much. Yeah, that's pretty much the MTX. Well, that pretty much covers the build, guys. I hope you guys enjoy it. There's a lot of details in this. There will be a forum guide, hopefully. I'm trying to do my best with it because I need 3 more guys to come out before the Harvest League league launches next Friday. Well, yeah, it's next Friday from the sake of me making this video. But just a reminder again, I do stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 11:30 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. If you guys want to catch around, watch me make some builds. I'm gonna go to town on Harvest League. I'm having some fun, you know, crafting and get away from Delirium a little bit because I actually want to, you know, enjoy the process of making a character more than just going zoom, 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 zoom. But of course, I like fast builds, so see more fast builds coming from me in the future. I still have 3 or 4 more guys to go, so look forward to that. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you guys there.